Again, are you gonna come back? Do it, baby. Do it, baby. Okay, we're back.
Live?
I hope so, and I hope it's the same link. Okay, well, let's try to finish properly. What I'll probably do, we were able to stream it live, but since, I'll edit out this bit in the middle and upload it as a video. All right. What was the last thing that we were talking about?
You were talking about, I think, Anderson. I never heard of this
All right.
individual.
It's not well. I mean, that's kind of the point, right? So this person had a pretty transphobic book, but not. I wouldn't say it's any more. It's probably a little bit more transphobic than J.K. Rowling's statement. But because he had a lot less institutional power, he had a lot less sway. The public was able to push back and actually enact some sort of power over him, as opposed to the biggest author in the world who can just say the exact same things and get away with it. It's one of the biggest reasons why Steven Crowder is probably still on YouTube, right? This dude is a bigot. There's no reasonable definition of bigot that he doesn't fall under. He's enormously racist, enormously homophobic, enormously transphobic, enormously bigoted against anybody who isn't a Christian. He should not be on the platform by any stretch of their TOS. However, because he has an immense amount of followers and makes them a lot of money, he gets away with it. So yeah, power is an enormously important part of this conversation.
I disagree with just censoring people. I don't think people should be kicked off Amazon or YouTube or anywhere. I think that the debate, the way to move things forward is the debate, and people like Crowder, by debunking them. Look, I debunk anti-Semites, yeah, and
I agree. It shouldn't be as simple as someone says wrong thing, kick them off the platform. There should be some nuance there. I mean, my name is SJW Debates. I debate. I obviously find value in discussions. Yeah. I've even debated straight up Nazis on my channel. So it's not something I'm opposed to. But there should be a little bit of say is there a TOS that you can't go over? Should they be able to kick someone off, not for necessarily having the wrong ideas, but for being their rhetoric is enormously harmful. They're just abusive. They're only harming the platform. I think the answer is pretty obvious. Yes, right?
No, unless they're doing something illegal. No, I agree that YouTube is global, so illegal is a bit of a problem.
Yeah, it's hard to say. But there should be some level, let's say that a person is making videos on this specific individual, and they're not doing anything illegal, but they're directing as much hate and vitriol toward them. They're making up lies, not anything that would be considered legally bindable, but they're directing a lot of hate and abuse toward this person. Do you think that there should be some sort of terms of service to be able to kick this person off? I know this morphed into a different topic, and we can get back.
But be, in court solved. I mean, look, Alex Jones is a good example. Yes. So, and okay, he made those videos about Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook it was. Okay, so remove those videos. Don't kick him off the platform. The thing is, Alex Jones. There have been people who have been influenced by him to go out and do violence. But the thing is, we don't know how many people did not go out and do violence because Alex Jones gave expression to the voices in their head. Because you have to be a little bit crazy to start with to take Alex Jones seriously.
I don't think that's a fair defense of oh, well, the only people who would be influenced by an extremist rhetoric would be people who are already susceptible to it. Well, yeah, that's why you kick those people off the platform, to make sure that the people who are susceptible to it don't hear it, right?
But if you don't give the argument can be made that Alex Jones, they are watching Alex Jones. It gives them some outlet to the voices in their head, and if they don't have that outlet, they will go out and shoot people.
But then what happens if that just gives this is getting into a very, very different topic, but
yeah. So, but I make look. I make videos debunking anti-Semites, and there is anti-Semitism in mainstream as well. It's not, it's also of misconceptions and lies which are helpful to anti-Semitism, which are gateway to anti-Semitism,
Of course.
and and uh, and the existence of people on YouTube, and I'm talking about a few years back, you had people on YouTube who were just openly anti-Semite, and because of them, I could make videos then debunking their ideas, and by that also explaining why the mainstream has it wrong. Now, all the videos I made about debunking anti-Semites have been removed. They've been removed. And,
Well, I'm not defending YouTube's like current policy in any way, shape, or form. I'm defending the theoretical YouTube that isn't shit. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know if it can be once you start with the censorship. It's okay. So this is a different discussion.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
There was there are two last points that I wanted to bring up. I know we're like trying to wrap it up, but there are two last points that I want to bring up. One of them is very, very quick. So, are you familiar with the Lisa Lippman study that J.K. Rowling cited in her paper?
I'm not familiar with the study. I just saw it Lisa Lippman. Look, what I don't know a lot about the trans issue. There's a lot that I can learn. Yeah, I'm still.
I'm not gonna like go through and like tell you in detail why this study is bad. I'm just gonna defend like people who are saying that this study is not a valid study, saying what any of the transphobes say it says. There's 100% truth to that. So I have a video on it if you trust me, or you can look at some other sources showing that if you know how to read scientific studies, this source is doesn't say what they say it says.
I watched your video on Schreier.
Schreier used that study.
Yeah. So, like I said, look, I'm open. I know that I don't know a lot about the trans issue.
That wasn't attacking you specifically. It just seems like something you weren't familiar with.
So no, I'm saying that there's a lot that I can learn. So this is why when I speak, I don't. I talk about language, because this is my field. I'm just kind of doing a kind of a meta thing of looking at the language that is being spoken in this debate and saying you are misusing language.
Of course. One of the biggest objections to the Abigail Schreier book and the Lisa Lippman study it was based on was this use of the word contagion, right? I mean, this is an instance where language is very important. If you describe something as a contagion, it's pretty loaded.
Yeah, this is a word that is inflammatory.
And purposefully so, right?
Yeah. Look, for instance, I changed my mind on women and trans women in sports, which I've learned because of YouTube that it's more complicated because it seemed crazy to me that they would be allowed in sports because the bigger and if they went through puberty as male, but
Quick plug for my own channel. I'm in the finishing processes of editing a video about trans people in sports. It's the rare instance where this is actually my area of expertise. So mine is exercise science. So
so no, and no, the counterpoint is that if they take hormones, the muscle mass becomes smaller, and then having bigger bodies is actually a detriment because they can't carry the muscle mass, can't carry the big bodies. So it's more complicated than people think. But again, this is one place where I got into it because there was about a year ago or more. What's his name? Essence of Thought. He's a YouTuber. He was making that claim that not allowing trans women in women's sports is a violation.
Just for chat's sake, I'm pretty sure Essence of Thought goes by any and all pronouns, so he is perfectly fine. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and
If I'm wrong about that, it's out of ignorance. Okay.
I remember now that I actually called him she in the video, but
I think they go
then I
by any and
realized,
all pronouns, so I think
yeah,
it's
then I
fine.
realized that it kind of is more. Yeah. And he was making the point that denying trans women, even if and he was making the point that even if they don't go through hormonal treatment, because right now women. Trans women in sports, they have to, I think they have to take hormonal treatment for 2 years before they're allowed to participate, and also have all the operations, all the surgical, all the anatomical operations, and but the thing is, women's sports. When we say women, but we actually mean female, because women's sports is exclusionary by nature. It's
Not to interrupt
it's an
you, not to interrupt you again. I've been informed that Ethel goes by she/they, so I just want to correct it in the video.
okay.
Yeah, they
Okay, so
used
we
to,
call her
but
she.
that's been corrected since then. So just wanted to make sure that was in in the video. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
So I really want to have a discussion just on trans sports. But like I said, I'm working on a video about it. That this is my area of expertise. I have 70 academic studies cited in this, on top of all the ones that I'm going to be responding to. So it's a hugely complicated issue. That there is a ton of nuance into it, and I think it deserves the empirical data behind it to have informed decisions. But the current conversation is absolutely loaded. Of this is the So when transphobes, and I say transphobes very broadly, when they attack this issue, they think this is the easiest one to attack, that they're going to get the most public support behind, and that's why they're focusing on it. Not because the issue itself is that important, just because that is the symbol of, well, here, you see how crazy the trans rights activists are? They're trying to, this is why they're attacking it, because they think it's the easiest. But yeah, I think the last thing I wanted, again, I really want to discuss this, but I want to wait until I make a video on it, so I don't ambush somebody with like my area of expertise. The only last thing I wanted to talk to you about that I think was, and you can, if you're ready to go, like if you're ready for it to be over, you can say so. You okay to
Yeah,
keep going
no,
for a little bit longer?
yeah, I'm starting to get tired, but we can do one more topic.
All right, one more time. Let's say 10 minutes. All right, so one of
Yeah.
the things you said in your video towards the end, and it's something that's, not just because it was in your video, it seems to be something you believe, is that like bigot. So you took issue with Natalie saying that bigot slash racist slash turf is a slur, or that rather that they aren't
Yeah.
slurs. You seem to take issue with that, and you
Yeah.
kind of took and I don't want to be putting words in your mouth, but you kind of took the issue that like being called a bigot does suck, like to the extent that like it could be as bad as being like actually discriminated against by like someone who calling you like a racial slur. Don't let
Yeah,
me
not
mischaracterize you.
discriminated against, not discriminated against, but it's worse than being called a racist slur. It's a lot worse.
It can be a lot worse for the individual person, but that gets back to the like, I mean, if someone calls me the F slur, I'm not gonna, depending on the context, I might laugh it off because that's just, it has no power. In
Yeah.
some contexts, there are certain contexts where that will be the most terrifying thing I could possibly hear. But if someone calls me racist, it's that hurts me, that hurts my feelings because it's something that I genuinely care about, and I don't want it feels like it's attacking my character in a way that like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to admit that I've made a mistake, so I'm going to be defensive about it. But you can see how like essentially what they're doing is they're saying you're wrong. So if you say you're wrong, could you interpret that as a slur? That's essentially what you're saying. They're not attacking your identity as a person. They're attacking your
No.
opinions and saying that the opinions are incorrect.
No, so what you should say is, this opinion of yours is a racist opinion.
Right?
Not you are a racist. This is a racist opinion. And then educate, and educate that person why this is racist. And if they insist on, even after being educated, on holding that, if they hold on to that opinion, then you can start, suspecting them of racism. But just because someone has a prejudiced opinion, and let's say just an ignorant opinion, which is
Yeah,
a
for what
racist.
it's worth, I completely agree with you, and I think this is a huge problem that a lot of progressives and leftists have. I think it's a huge problem. Now I say that thinking that like bigot's a slur. I think those are ridiculous. Of course, they're not slurs. But I absolutely agree with you when you say that. Yeah, it's not helpful to diagnose a person based on this one opinion. If they say something wrong, it's really unhelpful and it can be very damaging to that person because we do care about people. To diagnose them as a person for something dumb they said. Like, no one wants to be diagnosed or defined by the worst thing we've ever done. Of course not. And saying something insensitive on Twitter, I don't think meets the threshold of this thing defines your life. It's not like murder. Like, you murder someone, that could be the most important thing you've ever done, and it's okay to diagnose you about that. But saying something dumb on Twitter, or even saying something very racist, I think there's room to grow from that, and that doesn't have to define you. You have to look at other factors. No, I definitely agree with that. I definitely think that at first we need to talk about those ideas, like, hey, this opinion of yours is racist. Here's why, without impugning on someone's moral character. Not only because it's nicer, but also because it's more effective. No one wants to defend their character, but they're a lot more open to defending their ideas. I absolutely agree with you there. I just don't see this. I'm going to default to like the institutional power. Like there's nothing I can say that is going to have as much impact. If I like insult straight people and what's a slur for straight people? Breeders. There's no way that is ever going to have as much weight as a homophobic slur going the other way. Maybe on a person-to-person level, like that person might actually like feel minimized, but when we're talking like broad societal levels, and remember what is considered a slur is societally determined. There's no way those two things will ever like compare.
Yeah, but like I said, when you allow it, then you get eventually TERFs using words that they use for men, they're now using for trans women.
Yeah. No, I would definitely agree with that. Like the misandry, like the biological essentialism displayed by a lot of like TERFs, I think is just as damaging on no matter where it comes from. I would definitely agree with you there. I don't think it's diagnostic of all feminism, and I think that it had its use in some aspects. I do think it was more defensible when women were second-class citizens, and it was expected that women couldn't hold any place in society. There's a certain catharsis of lashing out and rejecting these societal norms that have oppressed you, but I agree that it can definitely go too far and be destructive, and this means of catharsis for you, that's you can talk about that. You just can't pretend that it's a meaningful way to advocate for your positions within a society.
Yeah, look, you go back to 2015, there was quite a history against men online, and most feminists are not, and haters are not misandrist. But it was seen as kind of funny and cool and all that to be misandrist, to say bad things about men. And now it's turned against trans, and now all those feminists are cancelled.
Do you know the stereotype of the millennial, where we're given everything for our entire lives, everything's catered to us, our emotional needs are put first and foremost, like we think that we should succeed at everything, and then the very first time we get out into the real world and actually have to try about something, we completely give up? There's something to that. That feels like the conversation about like misandry online. Like you've never experienced any sort of oppression, so the very first time something hints at it, it is devastating towards you. Now, for what it's worth, on a person-to-person level, I don't think it's cool to invalidate, like, if you actually feel legitimate suffering because of like this immutable trait that's being maligned and you're being judged by this immutable trait about you, I don't think it's cool to like say that your suffering doesn't matter, or that you're not allowed to feel bad, or you're not allowed to feel like worthless because of things that that have been said about you online based on stuff that you can't control. On an individual level, I think that's shitty to do. But on the other hand, when you frame discussions to put equal weight on misandry and misogyny from a societal sense, I don't think I think it's kind of, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I think it's pretty disingenuous on a broad scale to say that misandry is as much of a problem as misogyny in the broader society, or even just on the internet. Maybe in specific spaces on the internet, but it depends on what context you're looking at.
I'm saying that they're both wrong.
Of course they're both wrong. It's just which one is more meaningful.
No, so one is more harmful, but both are wrong, and both should be criticized and not allowed. And because
Oh,
the thing,
absolutely. Like, would
the
you,
thing that
if you were to, if
I'm
you were having a panel on men's
Yeah, the
issues?
thing that I'm criticizing is that SJWs are telling me, oh no, I can't be reverse racist or reverse and all that, and that's why kind of shield themselves from criticism in that manner.
Oh, definitely.
Uh,
That form of identity politics, this, my opinion, has more is better. My opinion on something that is not my own experiences is better because I have this opinion. I think that's pretty toxic. I don't think that's very, and that's not going to further conversations in the future. It is kind of a defense mechanism. I think it's infantilizing to say that, people of marginalized communities they they can't have flaws or they can't do dumb things that everyone does, that they're always perfect angels. And I don't think that's something anyone genuinely holds, but yeah, there's a sentiment I can agree with there. But let's say you were having a panel on men's issues, and it was a very legitimate panel talking about like how men kind of get screwed in custody battles, how toxic masculinity actually does hurt men, like this notion that you're a failure if you're not the biggest provider in your house or if you don't have a big job or something like that, like stuff like that. And then a feminist came in and said, well, well, what about women? We would recognize that in that context, the discussion was you're just trying to do a whataboutism to avoid talking about these issues. So sometimes it feels like when people are talking about like for example in BLM, there's nothing wrong with saying all lives matter. Nothing wrong with that sentiment whatsoever. What is wrong is pretending that was the sentiment being expressed when someone says all lives matter. People are saying all lives matter not because they legitimately think all lives matter, but because it was a disruptive whataboutism to get focus away from Black Lives Matter. That's what that was for. And any framing otherwise is simply incorrect.
yeah, but the counterpoint to that would be that when you say Black Lives Matter, you're basically implying that people are racists and think that Black lives don't matter.
Sure. Yeah, and the statistics kind of point to that being somewhat the case. Yeah, it's a little bit, it's hyperbolic. I'll give you that. It's hyperbolic, but causes have to be hyperbolic. But the underlying impetus behind that Black people are disproportionately, I want to say the word, Black people are disproportionately oppressed in most aspects of society, not due to individual like people being incredibly racist, but just due to the systemic inertia that we get from like all these broad historical institutions, and that they're put in worse situations, and that whole thing is one of the reasons why they're in the position that they're in. To take all of that and say, well, what about white people? I'm poor. I'm white. You're saying I don't matter? Like, no, we're focusing on this issue. It'd be just as worse if we were talking about like Appalachian poverty. Appalachia is a part in the United States that's almost entirely white, and it's very poor. If we were talking about Appalachian poverty, and then a black person walked in like, well, what about black people over in the inner city? Yeah, like this cause is about this. Like you discuss that somewhere else. Because that's why I think any like all lives matter was completely disingenuous, because it was never a real call to talk about those issues. It was only a whataboutism to draw people away from the issues that we were trying to talk about, which in the case of Black Lives Matter was systemic racism and police and like over policing of black communities. I know that is incredibly off topic, but
Yeah.
if that energized you and you're ready to keep going, I can go for a little bit longer, or we can start wrapping it up. It's up to you.
Let's wrap it up because it's getting late here, and like I said, debating in English is exhausting for me. So
I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you putting up with me talking extremely fast, which I'm sure wasn't super fun to like listen to, and probably made things more exhausting. And I apologize for like my tech difficulties. But for what it's worth, I think it was a really good discussion. I think
yeah.
I think it was productive. I hope anybody listening to this thinks it was productive, even if you vehemently disagree with either of us. I hope that there's some sort of, I hope there's some expectation of good faith. So when I see in the comments, what I would like to see, if you're one of my fans, try to engage in good faith, try to bolster positions, and try not to immediately dismiss somebody. Because I can say, like, I've talked to genuinely horrendous people who hate trans people, who do not deserve to be taken seriously and do not deserve your time or effort. I don't consider Zarathustras right here to be one of them. So I hope you give that good faith to him and further dialogue and actually help change people's minds that might be amenable to it.
Right.
All right. Well, cool. Well, like I said, thank you for any last words? Any last words? I shouldn't have phrased it that way.
No, I think it was productive. I think we talked about the things I want to talk about. I hope really people think about what I said and what we all said, and just take, try to improve the discussion. because there is a discussion to be had, and there are good, most people do want to, to help trans people, to help and to help, and anyone else who is involved in this. They want to find the solutions. And so yeah, and assume good faith. So that most parties have good faith.
Assume good faith within reason, yeah.
Yeah, but also that that a lot of parties have prejudices. One has prejudices, and also that a lot of people. This whole discussion is, since it's new, it's we don't really people. It's not their fault that they don't understand it.
And remember, as lefties, we understand systems and how important they are for people, and how like growing up in a bad system that's influenced you in a lot of ways doesn't necessarily impugn your character as a person, and we can change those systems to help make life better for everybody. The internet is not always real life. Don't let the horrendous discourse that you see on the internet, where people are not people to each other, they're just walls of texts. Don't let that influence how you talk to people interpersonally and like face to face. So, all right, I think we'll end it there if that's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll say, well, Zara, I am so sorry I can never say your name correctly. Zarathustra, it was good talking to you. Good to see you again, and I hope you have a good rest of your night, okay?
Yeah. You too.
Take care. All right. I like for all the things that I think that he has pretty yikesy takes on, like for what it's worth, I think I would not call him a bigot in the sense that most people use it. I think he's a good dude. I enjoyed that conversation, and I think if we had more conversations like that, I know that sounds like, oh, if we had more conversations with that, like that, everything would be better. But I sincerely do think that that's a better way with people like him. That's a better way to go about things. Like I think that if I had treated him like an abject piece of shit transphobe who hated trans people because he didn't have the correct opinion right away, I think that would have been way worse because, there are people who are reachable. And as an advocate, you have to be willing to talk to people who don't already immediately agree with everything you're saying. And if your immediate response is to just dehumanize them and say that you're already a bigot, I already hate you because you already don't think exactly like me, is incredibly unhelpful. And I get that it's exhausting to put up with all this shit online. I get that activism is incredibly exhausting. But the best thing to do when you're exhausted by activism is to give it a rest for the day. You're only hurting your mental health if you're constantly seeking threats that all you're doing to that is like adding fuel to the fire. Like, it's okay, take that step back. You'll be more effective, you'll do more good if you can allow yourself the energy to engage with people who deserve it. So all right. Yeah, I suck at streaming. I suck at talking with chat, and I apologize about for that. If this ends up as 2 streams on YouTube when everything's said and done, if they split it up because I had a little internet blip there, I'll probably cut them both together as a single video and upload that with the middle bit where everything's confused with that removed. But okay. All right, everyone. I think that's it for me. Thank y'all for showing up. Cool. Yeah. I guess I'm going to end the stream now. So y'all take it easy.